We're live. We are live. Hello, hello. So excited to be live with you today. This is going to be a good one. We are going to be talking about expat stories. My expat story, Christopher's expat story, and your expat story. That is right. You may not be an expat right now, but you have a story. You've got the before, and maybe you're working on the during. And in this live stream, we're going to talk about the after, your future state as an expat. And so I am super excited to have Dr. Christopher Wells with me again today to go over this. I see a couple people have joined. If you can hear us, please let us know that you can by typing in where you're joining from. And I see Robin has joined. Hi, Robin. Thanks for joining. So, the last time Christopher and I did a live stream, we talked about the 5 obstacles to moving abroad and becoming an expat. And that was a lot of fun. We shared a lot of information. And today we are going to have another great live stream where we talk about the power of story and why it's important for you to make sure that you have a sense of where you're coming from and where you're heading so that you can stay motivated, so that you can avoid some pitfalls. And we're going to share our stories along the way too. So I see some other folks joining. Teresa New Dawn is joining us, and Angela Allen says loud and clear that she can hear us loud and clear from South Florida, USA. And Robin's from Chicago. We've got Joseph from Boston. And Teresa is from Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, Christopher?
She's a friend of mine. Hey, Teresa.
Oh, okay.
It's a small world, but here we are.
Yes, it's a small world. Well, I think that I want to go ahead and kick things off by sharing a little bit about my story. I think that some of you may know my story, but I'm going to share it and how it has helped me to create the life that I have for myself. So before I made this move abroad, I had this idea that I wanted to live in a French-speaking country. I'd gone on a couple of solo trips to Quebec City, Canada, and I got the language bug for the French language. And I just wanted to speak it all the time. I wanted to become fluent in it. And I considered moving to Canada. And then I reconsidered when I realized how cold the winters would be there. And I am I am not a cold weather person. So I thought, well, they speak French in France, so maybe I should go check out France and see if I could see myself living there. And so that's what I did in 2015. Went for a week-long vacation with a friend, and I could to Paris and to Aix-en-Provence, and I could see myself living in France, but not in Paris and not in Aix-en-Provence. And so, but the seed was planted. I was like, yeah, France is for me. Less than a year later, I came back on a scouting trip to find the place. And I happened on Perpignan, which felt really freeing to me. And I said, yeah, this is where I'm going to be. And so at that point, I had this idea of where, right? And that helped me to stay motivated, although I didn't do a whole lot other than study French. And it wasn't until January of 2017 when it dawned on me that I have been wanting to make this move for a couple of years and haven't done anything about it. And why was that? So I decided I was going to hire a coach. And I had one session with her, and she asked me how much it would cost me to live in France for a year on the visitor visa. And I shrugged my shoulders and said, I have no idea. And she's like, okay, that's your homework. And I had no idea because I was afraid to look at the number, right? I was afraid that I've got this dream. It feels so good to say one day I'm going to be living in France. And then I didn't want to dash that dream by finding out I didn't have enough. but she said, that's your homework for next time. And that's what I did. I looked, and I was pleasantly surprised to find out that I had enough for a couple of years. And so that took my foot off the brake and onto the gas, and I went full speed. And a year later, I was living in France. So that was my before. My during was, those first weeks and months after I made my move. And the first 2 weeks was lovely. I was on cloud nine. I was walking around the city. I couldn't believe I had done it. You couldn't tell me anything. And then week 3 rolled around. Middle of the morning, one morning, I woke up petrified, thinking, "Oh, Patricia, what have you done? You quit your job without having a job at the ready," which is something my mom always said never to do. And I had done it. I didn't know anybody. My language skills were basic, but they weren't as good as I had thought they were when I was living in the US. And so I started to doubt myself and this decision to make a move abroad. But I knew deep down that I was there for a reason. My intuition told me to get there, and I had to keep up my emotions, positive emotions, so that I would not slide back and maybe return to the US. And so that was my life for the first 7 or 8 months, this tug of war between, oh, yeah, I did it. Oh, yeah, was it so smart? And that was really challenging. During that time, I went to meetups to meet people because I knew that was something that I would have to do, having introvert tendencies. And so I put myself out there. And little by little, things started to get better for me. So that it was the during part. That was the hard part. Now I'm in the after phase. And the after phase for me has had many different phases, but I'm going to talk about two such phases. And one was when maybe almost 2 years into my life here in France, when I felt like, yeah, this is going to be a long-term proposition. And that was in November of 2019 when I went to buy my car. I needed insurance, and the insurance agent didn't speak any English. And so we had a conversation about car insurance, all in French. I understood what he said. He understood me. Sometimes there were some technical words I didn't understand, but he broke it down. And at that point, I was like, yeah, Patricia, you are fluent in French. And so that was like an aha moment. And after having lived here for almost 2 years, and that felt really good. But now, 6.5 years in, it just feels so incredible to have taken a chance on myself, to have, done the hard work up front, to have gone through that tug of war that I went through to get to the other side where I feel like I am a part of the community here. I have friends. I've started my business here. I've put down roots here. And for anybody who has this dream of living in a foreign country, it is so worth it to go through what you will go through to get here. And so that is my expat story, my before, my during, and my after. Can you relate to any of those parts of my story? If you can, let me know what they are in the chat. All right. And while you do that, I'm going to hand it over to Christopher because he's got a story to tell you too.
I do have a story, but I have to say, when you said, oh, when I had that conversation about car insurance and it was all in French, and I felt really good about it, and I felt like, okay, I can do this, right?
Mhm.
I had a similar experience, but it was in a government office, and I argued with a lady who didn't want to do what I needed her to do for something called a padrón. And I actually was like, I just won an argument in Spanish. Not so
Yeah.
bad. So
Yeah. When you can
very,
argue in a foreign language, you're pretty good.
I'm not the greatest, but when it comes down to getting your point across, it's more than just one way communication. There's got to be some interplay, and you can't argue with someone without having the ability to listen, to think, to speak, and back and forth. And the same with talking to somebody about car insurance. And you have to be able to say, uh, "I'm sorry, what was that again? What?" I don't understand that word. Can you explain that? And
Mhm.
and be very comfortable after all this time looking like the person who doesn't know, but still accepting that and knocking it out of the park while you're doing it. So,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
let me tell you a little bit about my story. And the same with Patricia. If there's anything that you can relate to in either of our stories, put it in the chat. We kind of want to resonate a bit with you. For me, my story starts in 2009, and I was at an academic residency in Jacksonville, Florida, with some of my classmates, and it was it was one of those things where it was like a kind of a conference situation, and my colleague looked at the schedule of future events for the upcoming year, 2010, and and at the bottom there was Madrid, Spain, and he said, "We're going to Madrid next year," and I said, okay, I had a year to plan. Fine, we'll go to Madrid. And over that year, we planned to go to the residency in Madrid, and then there were other places that we visited as well. We visited Toledo, Spain. We visited Barcelona, which is a beautiful uh, opportunity for just exploring. There's so much there. And Madrid is the same way, just so very much. And then we also decided, kind of on a whim a little bit, to come to Valencia. And I will tell you that when I got off the train in Valencia, I felt like I could breathe again. Now this
Mm.
was August in Valencia. It was hot, but I don't mind heat. The heat is not necessarily the thing. Um, I was charmed. I was absolutely bowled over. And it was as though the history, the lifestyle, the pace of life, the food was all like, "Hey, you've been waiting for this, and here it is." And so I decided, well, when you have that thought when you're on vacation, like, "Oh, maybe I could live here," and eventually you get to the point where it's like, "No, I can't live there." But I never could get that no answer. I kept getting the yeah, yeah, sure, I can do that. So there were some things in my life that happened that meant that I was more free, and at that point I could prepare for my own move to Spain. So I've mentioned this before, but I had an I'm not dead yet estate sale. I sold my house. I sold my car, and basically whittled down my life to very few things. And the paperwork, because I lived in Atlanta at the time, the paperwork was not as onerous as if you live somewhere rural, because I could do a lot of the things that I needed to do in Atlanta. I eventually had to go to Miami to get my visa, but I could do like all of the health documents and the things that were required for the visa from Atlanta. Now, I made the move. And so in November of 2013, and this is the first time I moved. I've done this twice, crazily enough. But when I uh, came to Spain, I realized that I was like completely awake. I don't know quite how to describe the sensation of just being able to take in more than just a routine amount of things. Like, I wasn't driving to work because I didn't have a car. I was walking in a neighborhood. I was going to the grocery store. Everything was new. Everything. Groceries, neighborhoods, friends, even habits. I had to redefine them. And that, I think, was the biggest gift of that during phase, because I had to open myself up to the learning process, and the learning process requires um, making a lot of mistakes, and we've talked about that before. And
Mhm.
Joseph, I have to agree, and Angela as well. The blinders were definitely off. Um, that I felt like I had so much to explore, and I still feel that way, frankly. But I also had to learn to deal with Spanish bureaucracy. So Patricia had that third week moment, like, what have I done? And I was like, I thought I had everything under control, and I couldn't get an appointment for these things that I needed to get appointments for. There were a lot of things that became obstacles just because I didn't know what to expect. And thankfully, there were people who helped me here in Spain, that I had met through a couple of different social groups. So there were two major social groups. One is called Internations, and the other one was Yelp. Believe it or not, there was a Yelp faction here in Valencia, and so I had an English speaking group, which was Internations, and I had a Spanish speaking group of locals that were all part of Yelp. So I made two groups of friends that were so open to helping me find the nearest market, or like, where can I get certain things. They knew. um, your friends make the world go round. I learned that pretty quickly here in my during phase. um, and then for after, like, I'm now living, and I'm settled into a very healthy, a very happy routine. It's been a lot of work, and I am thrilled about the results of that work. I'm healthier because I eat higher quality foods, I exercise more, I have so much less stress than I did in the US. um, and I also feel like I can go see a doctor much more easily than I could in the US. I don't have to pay a copay because I pay for a private insurance. So I don't feel like every time I go to the doctor, I'm being siphoned of money. Um, and I sleep better. I'm generally happier. I feel more connected to other people who have my interest. And if that's the biggest gift I get from being an expat, that's pretty darn powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's amazing the transformation that, making a move like this can have on your life and on you. I look at
Yeah.
myself and I'm like, who am I, right? I feel like such a different person from the person who got on that plane in 2018.
Well, and I went back, like, after 2 years, I went back to the US because of
Mhm,
job reasons. And
mhm.
then I came back here in 2021 because my heart never left.
Yeah.
Like, I was always longing to be back here, and
Mhm.
that's what I made happen, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much, Christopher, for sharing that. Um, Ah, thank you. Retiring to France on a shoestring. Thank you. Please hit the like button so that people who need to see this will. I appreciate that. And then Teresa Dawn said that she could relate to something that I said, my mom's response. Um, your mom would question the sanity of moving to another country. Um, she didn't understand your
I
move to Georgia
I
from
ran into the same
California.
thing,
Yeah,
frankly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's not easy. It's not easy to do something this big and feel like, well, other people are thinking that you're crazy, right? So, so now that you've heard a little bit about our stories. I want to take time for you to start to think about your stories. And if you have a piece of paper and a pen, grab it, because these are some questions that will be helpful for you to flesh out, when you have more time, but to start thinking about them now. And we're going to, take this in the frame that we spoke about our stories, the before, the during, and then the after, because the before and the after are your bookends that will give you your frame and help you to get motivated to be in a new country, as well as to envision and create the life that you want for yourself. Because if you're going to start over, you might as well do it in a way that is the way that you want it to be.
Very
So
intentionally. Yeah.
yeah, because sometimes we put limits on what kind of life we could have based on the kind of life that we're living now, and it doesn't have to be that way if we can start to think a little bigger and start to think about things with creative solutions. Because sometimes it's like, well, this is what I know how to do, so I need to get this kind of job when I move abroad, when you've got so many skills based on what you've done, right? It's, you have a job title, but some of those skills you could do and it could support you. And so just thinking outside the box is so helpful in this process. So the first question.
Could I answer Robin's question real quickly?
Oh, go
Um,
ahead.
Robin, you said, did you have an emotional tie to your home, and how did you reconcile selling it? So the term that I use for that part of my life was I painted myself out of the room. I when the minute I decided that I was going to move to Spain, I started thinking about anything I brought into the house. It was either going to go with me to Spain or I'm not going to buy it, because I was lucky. I had plenty of everything, and I started shedding stuff. So by the time I left my home, it was just a lovely home. It could have been anybody's home, and in fact, did become somebody else's home. But the idea of having a physical presence and leaving that physical presence behind and moving it to another country was comfortable for me. And it's not for everybody. I understand that. But it was comfortable for me to do that.
Yeah, and I want to add on to that. So I had a home as well, and I think it's funny, Christopher. You said you painted yourself out of the room. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Well, so to answer Robin's question, did I have an emotional tie to my home? I The walls of my home were painted, bright cobalt blue and sunshine yellow, and to make it appealing to buyers, I needed to paint the walls gray. So I had
Cover
a
it
painter
all
come
up.
in. I had a painter come in and paint it gunmetal gray, and that for me, that detached me from my home because didn't feel like my home anymore, right? So that was something that I did, and I didn't do it intentionally to have that effect, but that was the effect. So I kind of painted myself out as well.
Out of the room as well. I'll tell you, when I moved back here the second time, my husband kind of complained because I was packing stuff up. Like, I had a very clear vision about what needed to be packed and how to pack it up. And he's like, "Could you leave some of the artwork up on the walls? I mean, so that it feels like a home." I was totally focused on
Mhm,
getting everything squared away. So,
mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and Sue, your question is a really
Oh,
good one.
oh, okay.
And
What-
I think we're probably going to answer that in a little bit, but um, it depends on your level of comfort. Um, Having a place to land for a certain amount of time. For me, it only took 2 weeks for me to find a place. For other people, it takes a lot more time. But having a place to land and knowing that that's where I was going to be was fantastic. And so the minute I landed, I could really focus on finding a place and I currently rent, to rent to live.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think, here in France, you want to, I'm not the kind of person who would, I think, feel comfortable buying something in a town I'd not lived in before, because what if it's not quite the right town? Well, in fact, I started out in Perpignan and then I moved 40 minutes to Surrey. So I was close, but so I would hesitate to purchase, but some people do that. And some people do that because they know the place, right? So um, I think in France, the other thing is that you want to at least be because you can get the carte vitale, which is the health insurance card. You want to be in the address that you give them so that your card finds you, because if you're moving here and there and here and there, you can apply, they can send it out, and if you don't get it, that's going to be a headache for you. So that's something that I learned from somebody who had that experience. So hope that helps. All
Well, I
right,
think
so we're gonna.
everybody's had enough time to get their pens and papers.
Oh, good. All right. So, crafting your story, your before. So, your before is your now. You know, what does your current life situation look and feel like to you now? And this is a question that you need to think through and ask yourself what things currently are working for you in your current situation, right? Because maybe those are some things that you want to make sure that you can kind of replicate when you make a move abroad. What things aren't working for you? Maybe it's a job that doesn't serve you anymore, and maybe you want to kind of shift focus, right? Maybe it's uh, I'm kind of getting into the after as well, but what is your life look and feel like to you? What does what are the good points? What are the points that cause you to say, yeah, this is another reason that I feel like I want to live in another country? And write those down, list those out so that you can get some clarity on, like I said, the things you want to bring with you, the things you want to leave behind, and go from there. And it's, sometimes it's eye opening to kind of look at the things that aren't working for you, because then you can kind of see where maybe you haven't been honoring your core values. Core values are the things, are the principles that you hold dear, the things in your life that cause you to do the things that you do or don't do, avoid doing, right? Because you want to honor them. And sometimes we aren't even aware of them. But as you list, where you are currently in your life today, and you look at the things that might be dissatisfiers, those are keys to core values. And as you craft your story, you want to make sure that your new story is going to honor your core values in a high way. All right. So that's the first thing that you want to do is what does my life look and feel like now? What are the things that I like about my life? What are the things that I want to let go? And maybe even are partial reasons for you to want to move abroad. Right. So that's the before. So you can that's the question that you want to ask yourself. And then when you have time, go ahead and write out all of that in as much detail as possible. Christopher, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I feel like the comparison of what my life is now and what it will be, what I envision it to be in the future, you may not have a lot of clarity on that because you haven't lived there before.
Right.
So being clearly defined about what your life is right now and what's not working for you, I think that is really important. I had a bedroom house. I did not need a 5 bedroom house. So, that was one of the things that was a thing that needed to change. And so that made it easier for me to see myself doing something else.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and I think you're right. I think the visioning can be the hardest part of it, because, well, maybe you want to move to Spain, or maybe you want to move to France, or you want to move to some other country, but because you've not ever lived there, you're not really sure what's available to you. But it's worth doing this activity of looking at, okay, if I had a magic wand, right? And maybe your life won't be completely perfect like this, but if you had a magic wand and you could wave it, and in the next year, 18 months, 2 years, be living in the country of your dreams, what would that look and feel like? What would you be renting? Would you be living in a house? Would you be living in a city or a small village? Would you be living close to the mountains, or would you be living, yeah, near the sea? What is important to you in that respect, and start to paint that in as much detail as possible as well. Think about the things that you said, oh, I really enjoy the fact that I do this, where I am now, and I want to be able to do that when I move. What are some of the things that you'd like to explore? Because I think making a move abroad really kind of opens you up to possibilities. Maybe you want to learn to paint. Maybe you want to learn to cook. There's so many things you can do. And as you write down the list of things that you see yourself doing as you are living in your dream country, it starts to really make you feel good. You get into that space of, I'm walking to the market every Saturday. I go to the market and I meet up with friends and we have coffee together, and that really starts to excite, right? Because for the the before where you are now, that can motivate because sometimes you're in a place you just don't want to be. And so that's kind of like negative motivation. I want to get out because I don't like these things. But when you create a vision for what you want your life to look and feel like in your new country, that's motivational in an inspirational way, something that you're running toward. And I always say, if you're just running from something in another to go and going to another country and you're running from something and you don't have anything you're running to, you're going to have a problem once you get there.
That's
Christopher?
very true. It's very true. I personally am running toward baked goods because here in Europe, the reality of being able to envision a little bit of your life and having that be your motivational star, as it were. You know what makes you happy, and you may not remember what makes you happy. You may have to discover it. It's a process. But if you can say, I'm going to be yeah, Angela, yes, yay, baked goods. If you can build just a little bit of that vision, then it can give you the inspiration to continue to move forward. I will tell you that, to me it seems like pure buffoonery as an American that I would go to that walk to the market and I'd have my choice of vegetables and I'd go have coffee with friends. I do all of those things. But before I couldn't have believed that that would be real. So think about, I mean, what's your ideal kind of day-to-day routine? And if you can paint that after with just a little bit of specificity, you can knock it out of the park.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So that's the after. That's your future state. That's the envisioning part. That's what you're running toward. That is something that as it gets hard, when things get hard, making this move abroad, it's something you want to bring yourself back to. It's like, wait a minute, I'm doing this because this is the kind of life that I'm going to have once I accomplish this. So we've got the before, we've got the after, we've got the bookends, and the during is kind of like the getting there, right? The planning and the kind of understanding what life might be like when you're living there, right? And if you've not lived in a foreign country or the foreign country you're going to, you're not going to necessarily have an understanding of what that is. But there's some things you can do now where you are to find that out, and that is talk to other expats who are living in the place that you're going to, and you can ask them questions about what is it like, and ask them specific questions. Is it hard to communicate if you don't know the language? Ask them questions about what the healthcare is like. Other questions that you have about this place that you're going to, so that you can prepare yourself. And I want to caveat this by saying, get information from other people, but I don't say take it with a grain of salt, but don't
Take
take
it with a
it
grain of
as
salt.
okay. Take it with a grain of salt, because their experience is going to be your experience is going to be different from their experience. And I can't tell you the number of times people will say, "Oh my gosh, I know it's going to be so hard for me to get a bank account. How was it for you to get a bank account?" And I was like, "Well, it wasn't as easy as my getting a bank account in the US, but I didn't it wasn't one of the things that I felt tortured over, right? It was. And so hear what people have to say, but know that your experience might be different. But having some insights or some of that information can be very helpful.
And here's where technology can really help you. So many of these places that people like to go to live have different forums available. So look for those forums, whether it's on Facebook or whether it's on an internet site. It, those all do exist, and you definitely want to think twice about any advice you get from it. There's one group in particular here in Valencia that about 50% of everything they say is just hogwash. And I have learned that when I pose a question to them, that I'm going to get multiple answers with multiple resources, and eventually I can figure it out on my own or suss it out on my own. But to give you an example, we had to renew our visa, had to get fingerprints to send over to the FBI in the US. And everyone in the group was like, who responded to this question, said, "Oh, you've got to go back to the U.S. and get your fingerprints done. You have to go back to the U.S. to get the fingerprints done," over and over again. And I'm like, I just don't believe that. And so I started digging a little bit more around the American consulate here in Spain. And what I found was in Madrid, they have an agreement with the police station there, and you can go to the consulate, get a form for your fingerprints, maybe pay a little bit of money, and then they will take that and give you your fingerprints that then you can mail to the US for your FBI check. We can do the same thing here in Valencia. And so it was the cheapest international flight I've ever had. It cost us, I think, $200, maybe $50 a piece, maybe $100, but it was the cheapest international flight for fingerprints I have ever in my entire life made. And I did it all on public transportation. So, that was fantastic. And then while you're thinking about things like that, and you know that there's a big gray area, stuff that you don't know whether you're going to encounter it or not, what your neighborhood is going to be like or not. You want to avoid getting stuck. There is a big distance between planning and your after. And that big distance is you getting on a plane and you deciding, like in Patricia's third week, that you deciding, I am here and I'm going to figure this out, that I can overcome some of these obstacles. And so what Patricia and I both agree and are very cores about is this particular question. Have you really decided? Have you really decided that you want to be an expat? Have you really decided that this is what you want to experience, at least for a little while? Mm-hmm. That decision, don't make it lightly and don't make it quickly, but that decision is super powerful, because once you've decided, then everything else kind of falls away. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, well, no, I definitely can do that, and away you go. It is a huge motivational point.
Yeah.
Would you say the same, Patricia?
Yes, if you're just thinking about it, considering it, that's fine. As Christopher says, don't make the decision lightly, but you need to decide that this thing is happening. I'm going to find a way or make one for this to happen for me. And then from there, then you can make so much progress because you're doing it, right? You have decided, you have committed. So absolutely agree. That's the first step in the process. But once you decide, oh yeah, I'm moving to France, I'm moving to Spain, I'm moving to, Portugal, wherever it is you're going, then you might swallow hard because you're like, oh, this feels real. This feels scary, right? And there are so many things that can trip you up after you have decided that you're doing this thing, that can cause you to stall, can cause you to get blocked and not make the progress that you want. And then 2 years, 3 years, 5 years later, you're still saying, well, I'm going to move abroad, but you haven't really made much progress. And so, what are some of the things that you think or have found that have stalled your progress in making a move abroad? I'm gonna go through a list of some questions and see if any of these ring true for you. Have you had a concern about, missing out on what's going on with your friends and family back home when you are living abroad? That is, and missing out on the community that you have currently. That is something that people struggle with and feel like, oh, maybe if I go to this foreign country, maybe I won't build community, and I'm going to be missing out on what's happening back at home. So that is a reason that some people get stuck. Another is that it's really hard to really see yourself making this move. You don't know the how, right? And I think that's the thing that we can get stuck in. We can't move forward because we don't know how. We need more certainty about how it's going to all unfold. For me, had I had to get a job right? Because I came on a sabbatical, that I still would be in the US because I was a project manager. I'd done a lot of different project management jobs. All the job postings look alike. So when I would apply for a new job, my heart wasn't in it. And somehow or other, the recruiters could feel it and I wouldn't get a job. And so if that was the way that I was going to get to France, that would be a struggle. But I kind of was open to seeing how things unfolded. And it turns out that I started a business here, right? And had I not had that faith to do that, that would not have happened. So if you can't envision because you don't know the how and you need to know the how, you need that certainty, that can get you stuck real quick. Also, some we mentioned this earlier in the conversation, how people that that you tell, oh, I'm thinking about moving abroad, or I'm moving abroad, and they say, oh, why would you do that? It's not safe there, or whatever the things whatever their fears are, whatever their concerns are, and you start to feel like, I'm feeling a little bit crazy about doing this. Maybe they're right. Maybe I shouldn't. That can stop you in your tracks as well. Maybe, people have asked me, I really want to move to Paris, but I think maybe I'm romanticizing it. Maybe it's not going to be as good as I think it is. And I get there and I don't like it. Right. And what if I don't like it and I turn around and come back? That is something that people struggle with all of the time as well. Another thing is just staying motivated, right? We can get excited, we can decide, we can have this future state, this after that we envision, but then we start to look at the visa process, or life is life where we are, and that things get put on the back burner, and we struggle to stay motivated, and that can be a blocker as well. So that these are some of the things that can get you stuck. Do any of these
And
relate?
I see some great comments.
All right.
Angela, you said you dream of being able to walk and use public transportation for daily activities. It's possible. And the I was just actually in Sweden, and I was surprised at just how pleasant it was. Now, would I want to be there in the winter? No, I am a hot
Mhm.
weather kind of guy. But if you want more cold weather, then there are lots of countries that support that, along with outstanding public transportation systems. Germany is a good example. Excellent quality of life, but also you have a more temperate climate.
Mhm.
Tanya, you said find a way or make one. That is absolutely fantastic. Yes, that's very true.
It is.
Um,
It is. I mean, that's the thing. If you want something and it seems impossible, you need to have creative solutions.
and so that's why Patricia and I even talked about this whole storytelling solution, because we've been able to tell our story, but you have a story too. And
Mhm.
your story is just as motivational for you as our stories are motivational for us, and we want to hear those stories. We definitely are excited about that for you guys. Angela said her stall is due to analysis paralysis, trying to find the perfect place.
Mhm.
Patricia, is there a perfect place?
No.
No, but
Wah, wah, wah.
no, but it could be that it is closer to perfect than what you have right now. And that may make all the difference. It really
Mhm.
make all the difference.
Mhm.
And I think that is a fantastic point. Um, you, e- I'll be honest, Spain has some rough edges, right? But I have learned to love those rough edges.
Mhm.
France has some rough edges. I also love the French rough edges. So there are so many different things that will help you grow through this process.
Mhm.
Venus, you said not being able to maintain your life in your new country, and without knowing your situation and what your life is, there are lots and lots of first world countries. If you are in the US now and you have a certain quality of life that you expect, there are lots and lots of countries here in Europe and elsewhere around the world that can provide you with that quality of life. But defining what that quality of life is for you is going to be one of the deciding factors. And understanding what you need out of becoming an expat, what you want to experience out of becoming an expat, is incredibly motivational and transformative for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, let's see. Oh, we've got several new content. Ms. Texas G, the universe may actually want you to move to France. That's true. Um,
Yeah. Come
and
on.
and and Angela, I think the universe may want you to live in Vigo, Spain. So there you go. It's a win-win for everybody. And these the tips that we're bringing to you today are just some of the things that might stall you. And we have some fantastic news, some stuff that we're super excited about. We've really only scratched the surface of what your story could become, and that is what motivated Patricia and me to hold a workshop, and we're going to do that here in Valencia on October 13th. It's called From Vision to Victory: The Essentials to Become a Happy and Healthy Expat. Patricia, can you tell me a little bit more about what this event is going to be?
Yeah, so this idea came to me because each year my program, members of my program meet in person someplace. Last year we were in Marseille. This year it's going to be in Valencia, Spain. And last year, when I posted pictures, people were like, "Oh, I wanted to be there." And I realized that since this was an exclusive event for members of my program, that maybe this time around in Valencia, I could have a workshop, during for part of one of those days and open it to the public. And so then I thought, well, Christopher lives in Valencia and he's an expat, and maybe he'd be on board for having this workshop. And so this is how this all started. And it's going to be an all day event on Sunday, October 13th, where we are going to help you to move through some of these things that have you stuck, what your stalls are, what your blocks are, and really to help you to create that vision, to create a plan, to help you if you are still exploring a place and how to create a scouting trip. A lot of things we're going to cover. So, what does when somebody signs up for this program, for this workshop, what do they get, Christopher?
Well, that's a great question, because what we want to enable is some sort of transformation. We want to help our participants move from being a prospective future expat to walking away being transformed and inspired, to give their expat lifestyle uh, a real goal and a real focus. Additionally, you get to work with us because we're pretty experienced in this particular situation, and we know what it's like to be an expat, once, multiple times, many times. Whether you're in the early stages of planning or whether you're ready to make the move, you'll have a plan when you leave. One of them is an expat life vision session that we're going to be doing. We also have personalized planning that is very session realistic, goal setting and decision making. Um, Patricia's going to be leading a hot seat coaching segment, which terrifies me, but it sounds like it might be fun. Um, how to create a scouting trip, because we both have a lot of experience doing scouting trips. And then one of the critical things is building a community. So how do you make new friends? I know that a lot of people are terrified of being alone on their expat journey, but you're not. You'll be able to make friends in part with other expats, but also in part with people who um, find you a novelty as an American, and you'll also make friends based on the opportunities that arise when you are in social interactions. So all of those things are part of it. We also plan on providing you with a workbook, and this workbook is basically all of those triggers that will help you remember your goals and your experiences. Think of it like a photo album. You know, when you look at the
Mhm.
photo album of your trip and you're like, oh yeah, that was a great trip. And so the idea here is to give you some sort of photo album so that you have a reminder of your learning experiences and you can keep working on it over time. There are lots of ways that we can do this. We've been developing tools and resources for quite some time. There's also uh, a kind of a timeline that we're putting together for you as a participant. Like, what should you do 1 year out? What should you do 9 months out, 6 months, 3 months? The day you actually get on the plane, like we've thought through that multiple times. So that is a big part of it. But Patricia has some other bonuses that you can take advantage of.
Yeah. And so just the opportunity to be around like-minded people, people who don't think you're crazy because you want to make a move abroad. We've already got 12 people signed up for the workshop. So you're going to be in good company. And so that is a powerful thing to have on your side. The other thing that I'm offering is during my first year here in France, I wrote my second book called Live a Bold Life, Your 30-Day Mission to a Fearless Future. And I am offering a free digital version of that as a part of the workshop. And this book really is meant to help you to stay motivated because it talks about my experiences during my first year in France, but it also at the end of each chapter gives you a an affirmative uh, affirmation, an intuitive affirmation to help you to move through some of the things, some of the limiting beliefs that you might have. And so it's a really neat tool, a really neat book to have, and I that is a part of the workshop as well. Christopher, what else have we got for them?
Well, because you're going to be in my favorite city, Valencia, Spain, you'll also be getting a fantastic guide that, depending on how you want to use it,
Mhm.
there's the tourist stuff, and then there's the interesting stuff. And sometimes they're the same, but sometimes you really want to pay attention to the interesting stuff. So I'm putting together a Valencia destination guide that will help you while you're here in Valencia. If it's only for the 1 day, that's great. But if you decide to spend a week in one of the most delightful cities in Europe and in Spain, then this is an opportunity for you to do that. There are also, well, you also get to meet us in person, which for us, that is hugely rewarding. Um, but Patricia, what else do you have to say about that?
Yeah, no, I think it's an opportunity to, see us in real life, get to know us, talk to us, pick our brains. It's a great opportunity to do that. But you also create amazing memories. Christopher was talking about the workbook kind of being like a photo album. I know that when I go to in-person events, I walk away with these memories of having met the amazing people, having learned things that really inspire and motivate me, being in a different city, and seeing that as well. So there is that added benefit, and we're gonna stay in touch, right? So we're gonna have this workshop. You're gonna walk away with a lot of tools. You're gonna feel motivated, and feel like this is truly possible for you. But that's not going to be the end of it. We're going to stay in touch for updates on other opportunities to either meet online or future events that are in person. So this is a wonderful opportunity to have that as well. So it's going to be an amazing time. And if you have decided that you are making this move abroad and you feel like you could use the support of you know, Christopher and me and the other like-minded people who are going to be at this workshop, you need to be in Valencia on October 13th. It's going to be amazing. Anything else, Christopher?
Well, I mean, when you enroll, I mean, just to kind of list a lot of the things that we
Mhm.
have. First off, there's the instruction that we're going to be providing, the workbook, the connection with other people, which suddenly you have a team. And I don't know if you realize this, but sometimes you need a team. And
Mhm.
the free download of Patricia's book, Live a Bold Life, which is a fantastic resource, and the Valencia Destination Guide for sure. We also have some social time after the event. We're all going to hang out at a bar together, and it is just a free form forum. So uh, we think that this is a big opportunity for people who want to go from dreaming about being an expat to actually being an expat. And until the end of the month, and it's really only until the end of the month. So we're looking at just a couple of days here. You can get you can get $100 off the fee. So the all of that is $297. If you sign up before September 1st, and we have a code that you can use, it's on the website, earlybird100. It's only going to cost you $197. That's a $100 discount, and we feel like that is a wonderful bonus for our people who sign up early. So I have a question for you to put into the chat. If you think you're coming, then type "see you there" in the chat. And if you want to come, type in "thinking about it." Um, Looking at some of the questions, Ms. Texas, yes, bringing a dog to another country depends on the country, and there are um, lots of different options there. Uh, but every country has it a different set of requirements. Um, Joseph, you it sounds like you have your hands full right now and you can't go anywhere at the moment, but um, maybe in the future you can join us at an expat event, and we would love to see you there. We really would.
And and Joseph, I just want to put out there that if you are interested in getting updates on future events, email me at hello@thecouragecatalyst.com and say put me on the mail list, and you'll be informed of upcoming events. All right.
Yeah, and if you go to the website, thecleverexpat.com/workshop, you can also register for updates as well there, and we'll put you
Mhm.
on our mailing list. So we have lots of ways to communicate with you, and we're super excited about doing this. This is kind of like a dream come true in a lot of ways for both Patricia and for me, and so we're thrilled to be able to share this with you.
Yeah. So Gil's Gap Girl is thinking about it. So if you have
Woohoo!
questions about this workshop, now's your time to ask so that we can clarify anything that's not clear. But hope to see you there, Gap Girl. That's a tongue twister. It's a tongue twister.
So, Robin, you said that you'll be in Southeast Asia, and
Mhm.
that sounds like a fantastic trip. However, we don't plan on stopping here, so we will definitely keep you posted. So get on that mailing list, and we will make sure to communicate with you about upcoming events.
Mhm. And Venus Kirby, thinking seriously about it. Just join us. Join us.
We
Is
would be
there
thrilled to
anything
see
that,
you there.
yeah, are there other questions that you have that would help you to decide? All right. Um, so, yeah, so that's what we've got going on for you. I'm really excited about this. It is, as Christopher said, it's a dream come true. This was something that kind of just happened for me, but I love sharing what I know and helping others to have the kinds of lives that they want to have. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that. So October 13th, Valencia, Spain. We hope to see you there.
We do. We definitely do. And we're going to focus on you and your dreams and your opportunities and your plans. And together, we will forge a community that's going to help you make this a successful transition to a brand new kind of life.
Yeah, yeah, great.
Ela, you said business is a designer in France.
As in interior, is that supposed to be interior designer in France?
Yeah, it was
Um,
from.
there is I'm not sure what the market here is for that. There is a Valerie Aston has a company called Start a Business in France. And she's got, and I don't know if I have this listed, she's got a download of 100 businesses she's helped people start in France. And I don't know if interior designer is one of them, but definitely I think it is worth doing some research about, and maybe, checking out that list, maybe reaching out to her to kind of get a sense and gauge, what that could look like. But probably, where there's a will, there's a
Yeah,
way.
absolutely. If not, there are lots of different opportunities in that field
Mhm.
that you could explore. Um,
Mhm.
let's see, Sue from Retiring to France on a Shoestring. Yes, you are welcome to buy us either a coffee or a vino, and we may buy you a coffee or a vino. You just never know.
All right. So if there are no other questions, we're going to leave it there. Hopefully you gained a lot from this this session about creating your story. Hopefully you'll be able to join us. If not, join our mailing list so that you can be informed of upcoming events that we're going to be doing together. Christopher, any last words?
Other than just, I'm thrilled that we've had this time together, and I'm really looking forward to what we can do in the future together.
Carol Burnett.
Right, right. And my website is cleverexpat.com. Patricia's website is,
thecouragecatalyst.com. Mhm.
and you can reach us there directly.
Yep. All right, great. Thank you, everybody, for joining live. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.